And what we'll try to do is we'll answer, first of all, we'll answer the questions that were submitted as best we can, and then we'll open it up for anybody else to ask questions that you have, and we'll try to answer them best we can. We've muted everybody, and then we'll unmute you as we go, just so we don't have lots of crazy noises, as you often hear in sessions like this. So let me start with, and I'll probably let Heather answer ones that are very specific to the portal, because she knows how to access and use the portal. I do not. And so I will let her answer those. And then ones that are really more global, I'll answer those. So the first question we did receive was about the portal. So will we be receiving new certification with differentials for each student in the portal? So Heather?
Thank you, DJ. So new certificates will not be issued for each of the parents. However, if you go into the portal and you choose the enrollments menu and then manage SR enrollments, view, edit SR enrollments, and you filter by the status of enrolled just to eliminate any children that are no longer enrolled in your program, you will see a payment certificate, a view payment certificate button, and you can choose that button to view the certificate. The other thing that you could do is, since now you have received your reimbursement report for January, that's available in the portal. You can go get all of your reimbursement reports straight from the portal. That's going to reflect your rates for each child as well. So if you don't want to pull the individual certificates, then you should be able to see those rates on your new report. You can find that report under the attendance menu, reimbursement details, and then you want to choose the appropriate payment period. For this time, it's January of 2021. So we get paid in February for the prior month. So you want to make sure that you're not mixing up your months as well.
And remember, this is for school readiness only. Okay, so our next question was, some of the new vouchers have an effective start date of mid-January. So this is for new children starting in mid-January. Will the providers have to credit parent accounts dating back to the start date, even though we just found out about this? So the question is yes. Unfortunately, the state state had to wait for legislative approval, which they did not receive until 2/11 of 21, and they wanted to be able to, or they did backdate the rates to January 1st to be able to give you those higher rates earlier. And with that comes the requirement that if the rates, if those rates become effective for any of your particular ages, then any of those affected parents, the parent adjustments also have to be adjusted as well back to the start date of January 1 or the start date of whenever that parent started for you, even if it is mid-January. And I can tell you, I do apologize for that. I know that that can be difficult to recalculate that information. I know that OEL tried really hard to calculate the information, calculate the new rates to get them implemented and be able to give you the information before the start date. And they just were not able to do that with the order of events. So they just were not able to get it done. The next one was kind of more of a statement, but I think the point was made was that there is not equal pay for family child care homes. And so historically in Flagler and Volusia, for at least the last maybe 15 years, rates for Flagler and Volusia have been the same both between the two counties and between centers and homes. This is rather uncommon. In between the two counties is rather common. in a multi-county coalition, it is somewhat common around the state, but centers and homes being paid the same is somewhat uncommon around the state. But here in Volusia and Flagler, we have often believed that quality costs the same, whether you're in a center or you're in a family home, and we have paid the same rates for several years. However, in this case, the statewide rates have been set based on the market rate survey. And so the market rate survey is established based on the responses that all of you and all of the providers that we survey and capture results from give us biannually. So every 2 years, we ask for information, and we do that through the information you update in your child care provider profile. And we also ask non-contracted providers as well. I can tell you, you can imagine we don't get a whole lot of response from non-contracted providers. It is, they don't really have an incentive to give us information, and it's a process that they don't necessarily appreciate going through. But the state uses those market rate information that you give us, and so we ask you, what are your private pay rates? And most of you remember that information that you give us in your profile. The state uses those rates to establish the market rate survey. And then those rates are what the foundation is for the reimbursement rates that have been set now by the state. Right now, I can put a link into the, I'll put this link into the chat for everyone. And I can tell you, this is the link that the Office of Early Learning has for the market rate survey. Right now, it's the 2017 market rates. They have not updated the link for the 2019 rates, which is what your rates are currently based on. We've asked them to update it, but they have not yet done so. So we're still waiting for them to update that statewide link to the 2019 rates. But if you keep checking back on that link, we hope in the next week or so that they will have updated that link to the 2019 market survey rate survey, and that's what the statewide provider rates are updated to. I do have that information, and I believe we sent out some of that information to you in one of the most recent emails. All right. The next question is, I plan to increase my private pay this coming July. Does it affect my reimbursement rate increase? And so, yes, it could. Increases done at any time may affect your private reimbursement or your reimbursement rate, especially if the provider's private pay rates are lower than the coalition's maximum pay rates. So let me explain that a little bit. If your current private pay rates are lower than our maximum reimbursement rates, you are not getting paid our maximum reimbursement rates. We cannot pay you more than your private pay rate. We can only pay you up to your private pay rate. Did everybody hear that? We can only pay you up to your private pay rate. So if our published reimbursement rate is higher than your private pay rate, if you increase your private pay rate, you would get more money. And remember, if you have a differential, if you are getting a quality increase, let's say your class assessment was high and you're getting more money because of that, again, you are capped out if your private pay rate is lower than our maximum reimbursement rate. So increasing your private pay rate will affect your reimbursement rate. And you can talk to Heather or myself or your compliance specialist individually if you want to talk about your particular rates. Okay. The next item is, if I increase my rates, does it affect my current parents or new potential parents who may enroll? It affects both. Private pay rates are the provider's advertised rates and are what is to be advertised to all parents, both current and potentially new parents that it will enroll. A provider may scholarship an ELC funded recipient any or all of the differential, but must collect the parent copay. And then any rate change a provider makes to private pay rates must be submitted to the coalition at least 14 days in advance of the effective date. That is in your provider contract. This also allows the provider time to notify parents of the change. So I want to remind you that in your private pay rate, there could be three parts of your private provider pay rate. One part is the reimbursement rate that the coalition will pay you. One part is the parent's copayment that the parent is responsible to pay and you by law are required to collect. The last part is the differential. So the difference between the reimbursement and the parent copay, so the total amount that the coalition is responsible for paying or the parent's responsible for paying you. The difference between that and your private pay rate is called the differential. As a private provider, you have the option of either charging the parent for that differential or you have the ability to scholarship or write off that difference and not charging the parent. Some providers, if they have Gold Seal, use their Gold Seal dollars, that 20%, to not charge the parent that additional fund either. That's up to you. But if you increase your rates, you do have to charge both the current parents and the potential parents those increased rates. You can't just choose to charge new parents that. For school readiness, now what you do with your private pay, I can't really tell you, but I can tell you for school readiness, you have to charge all parents the same. So the next question is, why are we not being paid like Flagler County? When can we expect another pay increase? And when will parent fees change in the system for our parents? So it's really three questions. So the first one is, why are we not being paid like Flagler County? My guess is this is a Volusia County provider who sees that some of the Flagler County rates are higher. So this goes back to the market rate study, and the reimbursement rates are built on the market rate study. In the market rate study, if there are not enough providers of a certain category, then there's not enough data collected to create a rate within that particular county. What the Office of Early Learning decided to do, if there was not a rate created for that particular county, is the state used the state average rate. The state average rate in most cases was higher than specifically Volusia County was. So that is why you see some of the rates in Flagler County be higher than some of the rates in Volusia County. The next question, part of that is, when can we expect another pay increase? Well, That's a good question. Um, Part of our intention is we are working right now to do the calculations of um, creating uh, the same type of rates that we had historically. So again, the same rates in Volusia and Flagler County, like we've always had, and then the same rates for centers as we had for family homes. So we're working on those calculations right now. We're also working on what that cost would be. I can tell you it will be expensive. It will cost us money. The cost of this increase alone, just the increase of what we had before to what we have right now, is $1.6 million for the next 6 months. $1.6 million for the next 6 months. So I'm not really sure what the cost will be to right size the two coalitions or the two counties cost for the same amount of money for the same rates, and what it will cost to have the family homes and the centers be the same. But we'll know that hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Then our plan is to we have two things we have to do. One is to talk to the board, our board, about their preference and if they would like to continue our long-standing history of that equalness. I don't know that I would call it equality, equity. I would call it equality. Um, and then we also have to ask the Office of Early Learning to approve that plan amendment. Where we might see an issue is the Office of Early Learning may not be as interested in approving that if it will be costly, because we will also have to ask for a reobligation of funds to ask the Office of Early Learning for more money to pay for that. And they may choose to say, no, thank you. But we plan to ask. That's our intention. I certainly hope that the board will, I think the board will want to continue the plan that we have had long-standing history of the two counties having the same rates. And I think that we can talk to the board about the cost of quality and the important long history that we have had where we charge the same rate for both centers and family homes. And so that's our intention. Our board meeting is at the end of March. We hope to have the information ready by that time to ask them for that approval, and then to be able to send that request to the Office of Early Learning by the end of March. Depending on what they say, we would hope to then be able to, so when can we expect another pay increase? It could be as early as the 1st of April would be that would be the earliest, I think, that we would see an increase. And then the last thing is when will, the last question, part of that question is when will the parent fees change in the system for our parents? And the parent co-payment fees are not a part of this rate change. So the parents' individual co-payments will not change as a part of this process. The time that the parent co-payments will change is only as a result of the redetermination of their services. What does change as a part of this is any part of the differential that they may be paying that is calculated by you. And that changed as of January 1. So only the differential changed, and that changes of January 1. So the next question is, if we did not increase our rates, do we still need to amend our contract? Unfortunately, yes. So signing the amendment reflects that not only are you aware of the change, but that in your contract, it lists the coalition's maximum reimbursement rates. And so those rates have now changed, and an amendment is needed on your behalf in the contract. The next question again is referring to why are Flagler County reimbursement rates higher than Volusia County, and then rent tends to run higher in Daytona Beach and Palm Coast. I know counties are bigger than those two cities, they tend to be mostly higher, mostly costly areas to live. So again, Flagler County area reimbursement rates are higher in some areas than Flagler County, mostly due to the market rate survey not having enough providers in particular points. And so then they had to, those points had to be replaced, the data had to be replaced with statewide rates. And those statewide rates typically are higher than than Volusia County rates. Okay. So why are some of the new certificates not reflecting the new rates? I think likely the data in the certificate was issued or enrollment was approved in the coalition, maybe in a timing issue. Heather, do you have
the date? So the date. So if the certificate was issued prior to the rates being updated in the system, then that certificate basically happened before the change happened. So it would not be reflected on that certificate.
Okay. Let's see here. So this is a really fun question. What's the rate increase for VPK wrap? Not the rate for the 3-hour VPK, but the rate for the school readiness children staying in wraparound. I still don't understand the calculation and think it would be the standard rate, just like all the other age groups. So I'm going to let Heather take that one. She loves this question.
Okay, so the VPK rate used to be a standard rate. So it used to be like $14.56 an hour, I think is what it used to be. And you got that, period. Now the system, and this is because the old system didn't have the capability to do this. Now the system calculates the rate. So what happens is your full-time 4-year-old rate or 5-year-old, depending on if it's a late starter in the VPK program, is calculated to be 11 hours. That's a full time. So that number is divided your full-time daily rate, your maximum allowable rate, depending on what your rates are, is divided by 11. And then that's your hourly rate. So then the system reduces the number of hours your VPK class is. So everybody's VPK class can be different. So let's say the majority of them are 3 hours. So then it takes the remaining hours, so 11 minus the 3 hours of your VPK, and it multiplies the 8 hours that are remaining by the hourly rate that we identified using your daily max rate divided by the 11 hours. Easy as mud, right? Clear as mud. So basically, the state is not going to duplicate pay you for those 3 hours or 3.5 hours or 4 hours, or when you get to the summer, the 8 and 9 hour VPK programs with SR money as well. So they're basically backing out those hours that are covered by another funding.
So I know that's pretty difficult to it's like difficult to process. Go ahead.
So if you have questions specifically about your rates, each of your contract persons, your compliance persons, has a tool to help identify what your specific rate is. And again, if you go to your January reimbursement report, you should now be able to see what your wrap rate is. You're going to look for the code FTV, that's full-time VPK wrap, and that will tell you what your hourly rate is. And that also can be different there's a PTV, there's a part-time V for that. So it shouldn't be different by child unless your reimbursement rate is different for 4 and 5-year-olds. It should be the same for every child unless they're in different VPK classes that have the different number of hours.
Okay, so the next question is, are we able to grandfather in the current private pay parents and just charge the incoming families the new rate increase after a 14-day notice, or must we increase their rates with the new ones? So no, all rates must be updated to the new private pay rate. If you're going to increase your private pay rates, you have to increase all private pay rates. You can't grandfather in some and keep some one rate and some another rate. You can wait and not increase rates at all, but you can't have some people at one rate and some people at another rate when it's a private pay rate. Rates must be charged across the board. And again, differentials can be scholarship. And again, OEL or the coalition is not telling you you have to raise rates. You do not have to. If you want to take advantage of the full reimbursement, the maximum reimbursement rates with the coalition, it may be in your best interest to raise private pay rates, but you do not have to. So we want to be very clear about that. All right. I'm not sure I understood this one originally. It said the January reimbursement report for February settlement daily rate is different than the provider payment rate schedule we just got. So does that mean we didn't get the new rate in our February payment recently? Does the new rate change back to the old rate in June? I'm very confused with the whole thing. So Heather, do you want to take that one?
So I believe this is a situation where the provider is not charging as much as the rates allow them to charge, and therefore they would not see the rates that are on the rate plan. They would see their maximum rates because, again, we only are permitted to pay what the provider charges as their private pay rates. These rates are intended to be permanent. Having said that, we are dependent on state funding. So we do know that the governor has asked for that increase going forward in next year's budget, which has not yet been approved. And as far as permanency, again, back to what DJ was saying about our intention of going to the board to see what their will is as far as aligning the two counties as well as aligning the different types of providers. That also would be a reason that it wouldn't be permanent.
So as Heather mentioned, in the governor's budget, which legislative session starts next week. So at this point, there are no House or Senate budgets out there. There's only the governor's budget. It's the only budget that's out there right now. And the governor's budget, this legislation from last year was $50 million statewide, of which our coalition got $1.6 million. In the governor's budget, there is $100 million allocated to maintain this increase in our statewide budget. All of those funds are coming from the CCDF, so the Child Care Development Fund trust. So there's enough money in the trust to maintain this increase in child care and child provider services or provider reimbursement rates. Along with that, there was an increase of $189 million in federal funding this last year, and in President Biden's recommended stated priorities this year, childcare and an increase in childcare funding is one of them. So we have an expectation that there would be a continued funding stream to maintain these increases long term. So that's our hope. All right, the next question is, when changing the new rate for parents, it looks like they don't pay me anything, or it is $21.15, like I owe them to come to childcare, and they were giving me $53.85 weekly, for example. How does that work if we can't raise our tuition rates? And so, Heather, do you want to take that one as well?
Again, I think it's back to the provider is using the maximum rate allowable, but not taking into consideration that there individual private pay rates are not as high as those maximum rates. So what we suggest is that you reach out to your compliance specialist for specific questions to your rates, and that if you can, I want to clarify that you absolutely can raise your rates. The steps to do that is one, that you'll need to have 14 days notice to us, so that not only we have time to process, but you also have time to advertise to your parents. That you're going to first update your profile, your private pay rates on your profile. And with that, you're going to upload your updated tuition dates that identify your I'm sorry, the date it starts. What's the, I can't think of the word. The as of date, but that's not what I'm thinking of, but I can't think of the word. So you're going to upload that, and that is in your documents, not in your document library. There's a specific place in your documents to upload that information. And then that is going to trigger another amendment. So if you do intend to increase your rates, if you go through those steps, you can expect for another amendment to come your way, which will need to be signed by both of us and executed in order for those rates to be in place.
Okay, the next thing is how can prices increase if we have a contract with ELC? So rates, our reimbursement rates, it did increase. It is one of the allowable specific changes during a contract period. There are a few things that we are allowed to change during the course of a contract period, and our reimbursement rates is one of the things we are allowed to change. We hope it's for the good because we've increased them. We have not decreased them. So we're hoping it's for the good. How will this affect the private pay rate? And then how soon can private pay rates be increased? So in the big scheme of things, it does not have to affect your private pay rate if, and one of the things that we try to encourage providers to do is to set their private pay rates based on the cost of their care or the cost of their quality care, not to set your private pay rates based on what we pay. And if you've set your private pay rates based on the cost of quality care, then this change in the maximum reimbursement rates may have no effect whatsoever on your private pay rate. If you do decide, so the second part of that question is how soon can the private pay rates be increased? You can change your private pay rates when you would like. I think the requirement within your contract is you have to give the coalition a 14-day notice. And then depending on what your handbook says, you probably in your parent handbook have some sort of a trigger that you have to give your parents X amount of days of notice before you change your tuition rates or your private pay rates. And so whatever that timing is how soon you can change your rates. So those were all the questions that were submitted ahead of time. So we want to open it up for any questions you might have, and we'd like to either ask you to put a note in the chat that you want to be unmuted, or if you want to raise your hand, we'll unmute you. Or Heather will unmute you. Let's be more clear about that, and we'll try to answer them. So I see Deanna. Heather, if you'll unmute. Heather? Oh, she's trying to figure it out.
Deanna, actually, can you try to unmute yourself? I took off the...
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that you all clarified a lot of things, but I want to make sure I'm looking at the chart correctly for the reimbursement rates. On the first column, it says license / exempt. Is that me? I'm confused. I'm licensed. I don't think I'm exempt from licensing, but are they paid the same? License and exempt are the same?
Yes. Licensed and
Okay.
exempt providers, they're centers. So it's a center-based care. You're either, some centers are licensed, some centers are exempt, but they're both paid the same.
And typically those exemptions are related to religious exemptions.
Okay. And then each coalition, you're saying, like, I know you all are Flagler, Volusia. I also contract with Lake County. So now their reimbursements are totally different from your reimbursements, correct?
That's
Correct.
right.
Which is odd because theirs was extremely lower than Flagler, Volusia. And now theirs are significantly higher than Flagler, Volusia. So I don't know
Yep.
how that happened, but I know the market survey. Okay. So, and then you all said it, I'm sorry, another one, that you foresee this being permanent, because if we do go and increase our private pay rates, I don't want in 6 months, I've increased those and then now I've got this, there wasn't much point in doing that because I'm really not gaining much benefit. But you do foresee this will, because I read something about 6 months to June. So I'm thinking it's not hopefully a temporary help childcare, but you're thinking it will be long term.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The way our budgets work are they're annual budgets. And so they're always set 1 year at a time. And this particular funding was a $50 million one-time budget within the legislature last year. And for this coming year, for this budget year, the governor has recommended $100 million, which would be enough for the whole year, and as a reoccurring budget item. So to roll it in, they call it roll to the base. They've asked for it to be rolled to the base now. So increasing our budget by $100 million annually.
Okay. Thank you.
So to DJ's point earlier, also that you want to make your rates what your cost of care is and not what our rates are. That's in your best interest long term.
Anybody else have questions? Deanna?
I'm back again. I just wanted to throw in there, our cost of care, as we look at what Florida voters put in towards minimum wage annual increases in that. I mean, I don't really know how to evaluate. Can I, as a little small business owner, go through and calculate every bit of cost of care for me? But if I look at a market survey and I see this is an average cost of what it's people are out there having to pay for that to me, that gives me some indication of where we are as a market, what we need. So when you say your cost of care, that would be an evaluation that I think might be beyond a lot of us to figure in workman's comp and insurances and employees and this new minimum wage increases that are coming. Because if you're going to have to pay a person coming in with nothing, no training, $11 an hour starting in September, our cost of care is definitely increasing it exponentially.
Well, and there's a couple of things I want to say. So one is, whenever you think about this market rate, I want you to remember that the market rate that we publish oftentimes doesn't include all of the child care programs in our area. It includes, for the most part, the child care programs that are contracted with us. And so what we find often is the child care, and we find this, and I'll give you an example of Miami-Dade. What we find often is the child care programs that are contracted with the coalitions will often set their rates at what the coalitions are paying, or maybe a little bit more, instead of even what their costs are, even what their basic costs are. And so in this latest allocation, there's $50 million. And when you look at Miami-Dade, the county is about 1/5 of the state, so 20% of the state. In this allocation, they got $1 million. Now, you would have expected them to get 20% of that $50 million, right? You would have expected them to get around $10 million. They got $1 million. And it's because their providers have, over the course of time, set their rates to be the reimbursement rates of the coalition. And so rather than set their rates to be even their costs, they've set them lower. And then the market rate comes in, and then they've reduced their rates. And the market rate comes in, and they've reduced their rates. So it's the spiraling downward of the cost instead of spiraling upward as costs go up. So I want us to be careful to not fall into the trap of thinking that the market rate is really a good estimate of what our costs are, because for the most part, the people who respond to the market rate survey are only the contracted providers and not all of the providers, all of the childcare providers in the area. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there is a bill that has been filed this year that talks about improving the cost, improving quality for voluntary pre-kindergarten. And one of the pieces of it that really looks for cost of quality has a component to it that is related to a study around cost of quality. And we're hoping to be able to get that study where we could share it with all of you, that allows you access to just what you're saying. I agree with you. It's really hard for a small business person to have all the wherewithal and all the great knowledge that goes into, and all the research that goes into figuring out what the actual cost of quality is. But there's been a group that has done all this research and has this great database and Excel workbook that's done a lot of the work. And she's just, the person who's put it together is a girl named Michelle Watson. And she's just now finishing up adding the minimum wage increase calculation to it. So $11 this year, $12, $13, all the way up to $15. And she's just about got it finished. And we're asking her to please share it with us so we can share it with you. Because then you can start to say, well, I have these types of classrooms. I have this type of mix. I always go with DCF licensing ratios, or I always lower my ratios. I actually, and it allows you some of these uniquenesses that you have. And I'm paying above minimum wage right now, or I'm paying minimum wage right now. So we're hoping to get that, which would then give you the true ability to figure out what your actual cost of quality is, instead of having to rely on these substitutes that aren't very good. So we're hoping, it's not here yet, but we're hoping it's coming in the next 6 months.
I'd also like to point out that the rates that you see are not the market rates. They are the market rates are used as the base for how these rates were determined.
So these are a percentage of the 75th percentile. And there's a whole, I think I sent you a document that talks about the whole way they calculated it. So for the infants, they are 100% of the 75th percentile. And then the infant and toddler, or the toddlers, the 1 and 2 year olds, it's 85% of the 75th percentile. And then the 3, 4, and 5 year olds, it is 75% of the 4 and 5 year olds. Yeah, the 3, 4, and 5 year olds, it's 75% of the 75th percentile. So you're not even getting, like if you were thinking about 100% of the market rate, you're not even getting that. So we still have work to do. We're getting, and we're making, one of the things I'm thrilled about is that when we were talking about what would our preference be, I was very vocal to say that I felt like prioritizing infant and toddlers was critical. That's where the cost is for you in childcare. And if there's any way we can pay a higher percentage of the dollars for those aged care, that's what I think is critical for you. Instead of paying, 70% all the way across the board, pay 100% of those infants and, higher percentage at those younger ages. And I was happy that OEL listened. All right. Any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have a question going back to one of the things I read said something about crediting our customers, but you also stated that we were paid for January based on what we were previously charging. And if I charge less than what the new rate is, so do I need to go back and credit anybody, or should I be okay as far as having been paid based on my previous, what I'm paying right now? Does that make sense?
Yes, and
Okay.
it depends.
Okay.
So if you were charging less than what we were,
What the new reimbursement rate is?
than the new reimbursement, but not less than the old.
No.
So then there's going to be a possible need for reimbursement to parents, because if you charge the differential.
I do.
Okay, so that's where it is.
Okay.
So if your rate was, let's say your rate was $30 and you normally charge the parent 10, but now you got reimbursed $32, then there's only an $8 difference that you should have charged the parents. So that
Okay.
$2 needs to be credited to the parent. And I'm glad you brought this up, because we did want to mention to you all that we are going to be sending parents a notification. We wanted to give you guys time to get your ducks in a row, to understand it, to have that opportunity to actually have that conversation first before we have it. But we are going to be notifying parents that if they may be due a refund or a credit based on their particular situation.
We also plan to send you a copy of what we're going to send them before we send it to them.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So that you'll see it first, and then like a day later, we'll send it to them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very messy, and we really had not wanted to do it that way. I promise. There's just no way to avoid it. Other questions? No other questions? There'll be questions when you actually start looking at it, I promise you. And when you do, call your compliance specialist first. If they can't answer it, call Heather. And if all else fails, call me. And then I'll call Heather and ask her really what it means. No, I can tell you the big stuff. Heather can tell you like the nitty gritty of how it, but we'll figure it out. Call us.
And then the other thing is,
I do have.
Deanna?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I raised my hand, but I didn't know if you could see me. On that timing, when the parents are going to get that notification, do we have any idea of when that is?
It'll probably be Friday or Monday, because we're going to have another one of these calls tomorrow. And then our plan is to, I think after that call, probably Thursday, send you out what the email looks like. We've already seen the email. It's drafted and it's ready. But probably after tomorrow's call, send you the email on Thursday, and then probably send parents the email on Friday.
Because we have a lot of thinking and calculating to do between now and then. those parents might be getting a refund, which they will, on mine will, because they're getting the differential will be different. But if I'm going to change my private pay rates based on this, then I need to be able to tell them at that same time to me, yes, you're getting a refund, but here's what it's going to look like 2 weeks from now when private pay rates may change. So that's just a lot of decision making and calculating, I think, because it'd be hard just to say, yep, you're getting a refund, and then 2 weeks later they get the other information to me.
Yeah, and maybe it's so we may wait until Monday to send it out. I think the Office for Learning is supposed to send out an email to all providers and possibly all parents, and I really don't want it to go out to, I don't want an email to go out to all parents before you get, so I'm just trying to kind of head that off too. And I saw the email, I saw the draft email that's going to go out to all providers. And I haven't seen the draft email for all families yet, but I just want to stay ahead of that. I feel like it's better. This is one of those cases where I don't think an email coming from OEL first is better. I think it's better coming from us and you first. You know what I mean? I feel like that's, and I don't know their timing on it. I do know that they said, I feel like if I haven't seen a draft of the email coming from OEL for families, it's not going to be this week. But I can't tell you about early next week kind of thing. So maybe we'll plan it, kind of tentatively for early next week. And I think, Deanna, from your standpoint, I think you could probably, and I don't know what the amounts are, but I think a lot of it could be a plan of, here's the plan, a credit, because we're going to be aligning our payment, our private pay rates. And so, I don't want to do a lot of refund to refund, and so you could probably use that terminology maybe, I don't know.
Could you repeat that? I missed you on that.
Well,
I missed the thinking.
Well, I'm thinking that in talking with your parents, you don't necessarily have to have all the decision-making points made. You might be able to say, here's what we're thinking. We know we have to do some calculations. We're thinking that as we do those calculations, we'll put a credit on your account and then work through the details.
Mm-hmm. And on that chart, just to clarify, as I know we used to get reimbursed the same for 3 and 4-year-olds. So I'm reading it correctly that now 3-year-olds are what, $22.50 a day, and 4-year-olds are $21.75 a day. Is that, do you have the chart there?
I don't have it right in front of me, but I can pull it up pretty easily. Are you getting it, Heather?
I'm looking on our website.
That's right.
Oh, of course, I chose the wrong county. Hold, please. Really don't like that there's 2 different rate things. $22.50 for 3-year-olds, $21.75 for 4-year-olds. Yes.
Oh, I thought that was Lake County. I thought I was looking at the wrong reimbursement. I thought for you guys it's $22.54 for 3-year-olds and $21.45 for 4-year-olds. Do I have it backwards?
So, are you looking at the actual rate chart, or because we have our name at the top of it?
Yeah, I just made myself little sticky.
Okay.
I just put it in the chat. In the chat, I just linked the Volusia County one anyway.
Actually, I can share my screen too here.
Okay, and I don't know where the chat is. This is my first time on Teams thing, so.
Are you able to see on your screen now the rate chart?
No, all I see is HD for Heather Lorenzo, looks like. I just have
I like how you say my last name. Okay.
Do you roll the R? Not sure. Lorenzo. Yeah, rolled R. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm not sure why you're not seeing it. Is everybody else seeing the rate chart? Yes, everybody else is seeing it. So as far as the chat, Deanna, let's see if this other screen will share for you. You guys are going to see yourselves really big, maybe. Oh.
Well, I'll just double check. I'll go and look at the rates, but I have made my sticky notes. Maybe I messed up Lake County with you guys.
Yeah, so Volusia County definitely says $22.50 for full-time 3-year-old, $21.75 for full-time 4-year-old.
So maybe I'm just totally confused. I will double check. I can't see anything, no one or anything except HD.
Okay.
So, but that's all right. I'll go.
I feel special.
Okay. There you are. There's D there. No problem though. Thank you.
All right, last call for questions. Anyone? Okay, you guys are welcome to register for the one tomorrow as well if you want to hear this all over again, but we're going to go through those like 25 questions exactly the way we did, and then we'll have the fun conversation of the real nitty-gritty questions that you have. So, but there's no limit to the number of sessions that you join. So if you'd like to hear it again, you're welcome to do that.
DJ?
Yes?
This is Debbie at La Petite. When you're done, I have a completely unrelated question, but I have to get an answer this evening. Can I ask you? Okay.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll stay on.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody, for taking the time. Again, the meeting is recorded, so you can listen to it. We'll probably put it somewhere on the website, and Heather will send out an email or a link to it or whatever, so you can see where it is. But thank you again for the questions, and thank you for continuing to be such wonderful providers and taking care of all of our children. We appreciate it.
Thank you all. Nice to see you. Stay
All right.
well.
Thanks. Okay. I'll stay on, Deborah.
Okay. It's just